Welcome back. Now let's drill down on that, opportunities that may be available to mostly domestic investors as multinationals exit the country. And we're going to have that conversation with the Director General of Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Dr. Adewale Smart Oyenrinde, joins us from our Abuja studio. Dr. Oyenrinde, you've been busy these days. I see you're preparing for your summit and all of that, but thank you so much for making time to speak with us this morning.
Thank you for having us. Good morning, viewers.
Great. So I know that obviously it's heartbreaking and it's sad and scary. We see companies closing, steel company, makers, consumer goods, industrial goods, just sending shocks down the spine of Nigerians. But I mean, the other way to look at it is that this may be an opportunity for domestic investors, manufacturers to fill up this space. What do you see from this perspective?
Well, as many have said, and we align absolutely with that perspective, that Nigeria is a land of opportunities. If you take a cursory look at the global community, many countries don't have the kind of potential we have, the kind of resources that God has endowed us with, both from the context of natural resources and the context of human resources. We are greatly endowed, and there's really no reason, as many have said, why we are where we are currently. So for those that are living, there are reasons why they are living, and for those that are coming, those that have seen the opportunities, there's also a reason why they are coming. Our hope, our earnest hope is that the reasons why many are leaving, that the government and stakeholders, we all collectively do the needful so that we address those issues, so that those that are coming newly, they will not face the same challenges that those are living, that they are currently facing. So we need to stop the rigmarole. It is better when you have new investors coming in, building on the current investors, both local investors and foreign investors. It is easier, it is better when you have them coming in and you are not in this rigmarole of substitution. Some are leaving and some are coming, some are leaving and some are coming, which causes a lot of distortion, even in the context of employment and job creation. So for us, it's neither here nor there. We just hope that we address those issues quickly and we address them fundamentally.
And what approach would you suggest, or do you see the government or even the private sector, as you have said, it's a joint collaboration and we need everybody's hands on deck. Do you see the intention or intentional steps being taken to do this needful that you talked about?
Now, government have its rule, as its definitive rule. The private sector, we have our rule. The average Nigerians, they have their rules. Other stakeholders, civil societies, everybody have their salient rules. And the expectation is that we'll find at a point, we'll have our objectives and interests, even labor, our objective and interest at a point, we coalesce into a focused direction where the whole conversation will be about national development. The whole conversation is about economic growth. The whole conversation will be about enhancing our capacity to generate this prosperity that this country has the potential to generate. So we have our role, and government have a bigger role in the context of creating that environment and also building consensus. I think that's part of the things that have been missing. Building massive consensus around the reforms that are ongoing, around the programs of government, and around the intention of government. Once we get everybody behind government, it becomes easier for government reforms, government programs to yield desired objectives.
Yeah, and yesterday we did see that you met to say that these are some of the issues you want to talk about at your summit, which I believe is next week. But one would say, haven't we done enough talking? We've been talking. even before the reforms came, and the reforms have come, economists and private sector and analysts have been talking of what should have been done perhaps before the reforms and even now to quell some of the harsh realities. So what's going to be different this time around?
Now, and thank you for coming to the summit. You know, we have been talking really, as you said, advocacy has been going on at different levels. But the reform gives not only the private sector, or the summit, pardon me, gives not only the private sector, but also the government, gives it the massive opportunity, especially at this critical time, the massive opportunity to engage the community of employers in a 2-day event where policy options, policy conversations can actually be held, where policy recommendations can actually be made. And the summit, in its 3 years existence, we had the first one 2 years ago, and the team was enthroning the private sector as engine of national development, with consequential positive effects. Last year we had on trade and promoting trade and non-oil exports. And the outcome of the summit last year was part of the policy recommendations that we were able to make to the new administration when they came in. So for us, the summit has gone beyond a talk shop. It's a policy program, a policy event like no other, organized by employers to build consensus not only between the employers and also give government the opportunity to engage and engage constructively. It is one thing for you to engage those whose interests are beyond national development. For the employers, our sole interest, our major interest is how do we develop this economy and allowing the private sector to fulfill its potential, the big potential that we have to chart a positive trajectory for this economy. That is the conversation that we're going to have at the summit. And as I said, the summit has gone beyond the talk shop. It's quite a fundamental conversation that every important person, economically important person, every individual that has a stake in this economy, that they should participate in.
Yeah, but I mean, after the talk, because I mean, at the summit, you're still going to, what's the plan? You should have government personnel there, obviously, but are you putting on a communique? Are you following up, things to really make it concrete?
Now, this is the plan for us, and this we did in the first edition, we did in the second edition. The summit will run from Tuesday 25th to 26th, and the theme is economic renaissance. And you agree with me, there's nothing we need as dire as economic renaissance in this country now. And the idea is, how do we harness government reforms? The reform has affected all of us differently. How do we harness government reforms with private sector agility? Can the reform work without the cooperation of the private sector? We don't think so. So how do we harness private sector agility to make the reforms, to make them work? And for each of the sessions that we're going to have, and as we did in the second edition, is to come up with definitive communique, an action plan that we'll share with relevant agencies of government. We'll be discussing issues about fiscal and monetary policy. We'll be discussing issues about regulatory issues. We'll be discussing issues about legislating for businesses to thrive. We'll be discussing issues about skills. So all these conversations, for us, we come up with communique and distill it down to relevant agencies, ministry, and government to also guide their action. We're not interrogating what we are doing, but for us, it's more of coming up with policy options that we believe strongly, if implemented, can hasten the growth and development of this economy, and also hasten the achievement of the 7-point agenda of this administration. So it's not a talk shop, definitive action plan will come out of this summit that we also will believe strongly, as it has done in time past, to aid the growth and rapid development of this nation.
Meanwhile, Mr. Oyerinde, do you think that perhaps it's okay to just watch things as they continue? Yesterday or 2 days ago, we had a steelmaker in Ogun State, RT. They've also announced they'll be leaving. A little bit told me PEP is also leaving. So is it safe? Is there nothing that should be done or could be done, perhaps to stop or reduce the exit? Is it all right? Perhaps it's just creating space for domestic players to come on board?
Well, there's quite a lot to be done. And as I mentioned earlier, government have to take the lead. On our part, and at the Global Forum, we are members of Business Africa, a community of business owners and employers in the whole of Africa. We are members of Federation of West African Employers, also the Committee of Employers and Investors in West Africa. And at the global level, we are also members of the International Labour Organization, where employers gather and where we have deep conversation about investment, about financing, about growth generally. So for us, we play our part in convincing investors, in convincing the global community that Nigeria is a fertile ground to invest. Now, for government have to play a major role also. We want to commend the work of PEBEC, what PEBEC is doing to promote ease of doing business in this country. But every agency, and this is very important, every agency, every ministry, all departments of government, both at the federal and the subnationals, they must all work in harmony so that we reduce the contradictions that we find in this economy. And those are key issues. One agency of government or the federal government cannot be promoting job creation, and another agency of government is also creating bottlenecks for job creation. You cannot say one agency of government is promoting ease of doing business, and some other agencies of government or level of government, they're also creating bottlenecks for ease of doing business. Everybody must work in harmony so that we are not communicating different messages to the international community. The international community, they are listening, they are watching, and they are receptive to coming. But those issues, those big and salient issues about the regulatory environment, about the tax environment, even about security, we need to deal with them because those are fundamental issues. Not to mention the issue of the justice system. If your justice system, your legal system is not strong enough and it doesn't give an investor the guarantee that when there are issues, the legislative system will deal with the issues and deal with it without partiality, then it becomes difficult for them to come. Those are issues that we think government can handle and handle quickly, and they are not rocket science, basically.
All right, Mr. Oyende, thank you so much for those suggestions. Obviously, we have to keep talking. We cannot give up on our country. We cannot give up. We have to do the little we can. Director General, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, Mr. Adewale Smarto Oyende, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.